What's up, guys, and welcome back to another TikTok reaction video. Today, we're going to be talking all about cheating and the types of women you'll want to stay away from if you don't want your life to go up in smoke. But without wasting any more time, let's get into the mess.
You see that a lot, where the partner has accepted the other partner cheating?
Yes, I've had a lot of people who come in and say to me, he had a bunch of affairs over the years and I just let it go. Like,
really? Or
she had a bunch of affairs over the years and we didn't make an issue of it.
Okay,
yeah,
so
really. And see, just the fact that you, and it's understandable, I'm not criticizing you, but the fact that you go, really? Is, okay, why would that be that shocking? Like, people cheat all the time. People step outside of their relationship all the time. People like diversity of sexual partners.
Okay, so here's the question then. Have you ever seen an affair in the presence of someone being in love?
I don't know that I'd be qualified to say whether someone was in love or not. Here's what I will say, because love is an emotion and love is a verb.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I've certainly seen people that were having affairs and in every aspect of their outward life appear to be deeply committed to their marriage.
Okay, so they were
an economic provider. They were a diligent parent. They were attentive to the emotional state of their partner. They still had an active sexual relationship with their partner, but it wasn't let's say, a terribly prolific one, perhaps.
So you can cheat and be in love?
Sure. I mean, listen, just the term cheat, you know, like, okay, well, then a cheat meal. Like, you can be on a healthy diet and enjoy a cheat meal, you know, and there's something great about it because it's a cheat meal. It's like a little thing you do to treat yourself, and then you go back to eating healthy and regular.
While it's still shocking to me that a lot of people will stay with a cheating partner, I can't deny that it's something that happens very often. And I get it. Marriage can be complicated and messy sometimes, and people invest their entire lives into these relationships, so it makes sense as to why a lot of people can't so easily give them up. But for me, cheating is a hard line. Now, I may be showing my bias here a little, but when he was talking about the people who cheat on their partner but are still heavily invested in their marriages, it seemed to me like he was talking about men, simply because we all know that men can compartmentalize sex better than women. While there are women in relationships who can sleep with other men and still love their partner, that number's far fewer when compared to men. As they say, a guy doesn't even have to like a woman to want to get off with her. When it comes to why women develop stronger attachments to men after sex, the website Elite Daily had this to say: women are programmed to become emotionally attached as a survival method to ensure security for their children. Men, on the other hand, are programmed to detach. And when it comes to who forgives more when it comes to cheating, the website Tyrone Law had this to say: depending on the report, numbers vary. A staggering 40 to 45% of American marriages are hit by infidelity. Coincidentally, 40% of couples working through the effects of cheating are now separated or divorced. Compare this with the numbers around those who have never struggled with unfaithfulness. Only 17% of American adults who have never struggled with infidelity are divorced. This is a powerful example of how far-reaching the impact of infidelity is, and how deep the emotional and relational effects of cheating runs. For cheating spouses, men are more likely to stay married than women who have been unfaithful, with 61% of men remaining married to their spouse, and only 44% of women. Regardless, when it comes to all this cheating shit, you can miss me with all of it, because I don't need to risk raising a kid that isn't mine, or, like some unfortunate souls, end up contracting an STD that isn't curable. Cheaters are some of the most selfish people, because they only think about themselves and what they can get out of a relationship, which is precisely the type of energy I don't need around me.
What are the predictors of infidelity? How can you tell if someone's going to cheat?
The most obvious one would be, have they cheated on a past partner? Once a cheater, always a cheater. This lines up with our folk psychology. It's not exactly true in the sense that many people cheat on one person and then never cheat again, but it's true enough, let's say. There was one longitudinal study from Kayla Knopp that found that if someone had cheated in their last relationship, they were 3 times more likely to cheat in their next relationship.
What else?
Yeah, extra pair interest. We are naturally quite sensitive to extra pair interest. People tend to notice if their boyfriend is constantly checking other girls out. That seems to predict infidelity empirically. And extra pair flirtation. There are people who are, let's call it, laser focused on their partner. And then then there are people who you go to the social event and they just want to talk to all the hot guys or all the hot girls, that kind of thing. Narcissism is another thing to look out for. And I don't say this in like a loaded way, but a general history of promiscuity, I would say, would be something to look out for. If you're a woman, you're choosing between two guys, and one guy, he's slept with over 100 women, he loves going to the club, he loves having one-night stands, he rarely has long-term relationships, and the other guy has had like 2 long-term girlfriends and has never had casual sex. If you're choosing between those two guys, which is more likely to cheat on you, I think it should be obvious, but it is statistically backed as well, that the guy who has more of a history of monogamy is going to be more faithful in practice.
While I agree mostly with what he's saying, I wonder if that monogamous guy isn't cheating because he doesn't have a choice. We all know that it's much harder for men to get action in the bedroom when compared to women, but if that limit was removed, would that guy still be faithful? I remember a while back I used to watch a channel called Playback with Agent from AMP and his ex-co-host, Lo, and they'd always go in on Fresh and Fit for their views on dating. And while I think Fresh and Fit can be very extreme, there are still some basic truths in what they say sometimes. So, why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing it up because Agent's ex-co-host, Lo, proved one of Fresh and Fit's points, in that if you give a man enough resources and status, there's a high likelihood that he'll seek outside coochie, which is exactly what Lo did. A lot of men may not be cheating on their partners not because they don't want to, but simply because they can't. I mean, this is something that Chris Rock's even joked about in the past.
A man gonna be a man. A man is basically as faithful as his options. That's how faithful a man is. No more, no less. And you see all these fat Republican guys going, I would never do such a thing. This is a travesty. I'm like, nobody's trying to blow you.
While I agreed with this when I first saw it, I agree with it even more now that I'm older. Remember, when you see all these happy or power couples on TV or on platforms like YouTube or TikTok, you have no idea about what's really happening when the cameras are off.
Partner poaching absolutely happens. There are people who get off on luring away a married person from their partner. They feel that they're the better person if they can take somebody else's partner. Now, talking about this does not mean that the person who strays or cheat is not at fault. It doesn't alleviate their fault, but it shines a light on these narcissistic, histrionic, APD personality types that are deeply entrenched in wanting and seeking and grooming and almost brainwashing, inserting thoughts into the person's head about how bad their partner is and how much better they are. And they can be grooming the person for years, coworkers for years, before the vulnerability in the marriage hits, and then they strike. Partner poaching is a thing, and we gotta stop making excuses. Person who strays is still at fault, but there are those that seek this out.
This is the exact sort of thing I'm always talking about when your girl's getting too friendly with that new coworker. Look, I haven't always been an angel, but I can tell you firsthand that it's very easy to get close to someone at work who's in a relationship, and then one day, things go too far. A lot of cheating that happens in the office starts off as just innocent talk at the water cooler or whatever. But if the person in a relationship isn't attentive to what's going on, lines can start to get blurred, and before you know it, you're doing things you never thought you'd do. When a guy's hitting on a woman, he doesn't have to be loud about it, and for the most part, as long as he can keep her talking, he can start to progress things. And more often than not, things will move along so slowly that the woman won't even be aware that it's happening until they get too close at the Christmas office party. Because of my own past experience and what I've seen, I'll always be weary if my wife was to tell me that she met some nice or funny dude at work.
Being faithful is so much more than just not physically cheating on your spouse. So many men settle for this idea that they are a good, faithful husband because they don't cross the very obvious line of jumping into bed with a woman. But they'll still have questionable conversations with women, store, at the gym, at work. They flirt with the idea of cheating. Being faithful is not just physically honoring your marriage, it is emotionally honoring the commitment you made to this woman. Being a faithful spouse, a faithful husband, is also going to include not seeking validation from other women. I don't know where along the way men started thinking it was okay to blur the lines. And there's plenty of women that justify this. They'll be like, I don't care if my man looks, but he doesn't touch. Who wants to be in a relationship where you're blurring this line? It is not hard to have boundaries to protect your relationship and not walking this line of like, well, I can flirt, but as long as I don't touch. Who wants that relationship? That sounds so terrible. And then people wonder why they can't make their marriage work, why they hate each other, why resentment has built up in their relationship, because you normalize emotional cheating, sending that flirty text, having that flirty conversation with your female coworker, with your coworker. Like, either be all into your marriage or stay single.
Yeah, it's pretty much what I just said. I mean, I don't even believe in the concept of innocent flirting. Flirting is the perfect way to see how far you can push something without actually having to push it. If you were to watch two people innocently flirt for the first time, then checked in on them a month later, presuming the flirting continued, I can promise you that within that time, things would have escalated. If you're a man or woman who doesn't want to run the risk of stepping out on your partner, you should shut that shit down immediately, because if you don't, it'll only serve as a sign that it's okay, and eventually, the heat in your conversations with this person will get dialed up.
These are the most common woman cheaters according to a divorce lawyer. Let's break it down. Number 1, women who pay all the bills. That makes sense. If she makes her own bag, she makes her own bed. It's up to her who lays in it. That's why it's crucial to spoil your girl a little bit. Applebee's runs half off appetizers every day, bro. There's no reason you shouldn't be showing her the finer things in life.
If you think that spending a few dollars on your girl is going to be the one thing that stops her from cheating on your ass, you've got another thing coming. Women cheat on their wealthy husbands all the time. So while guys like to think that money can stop that shit from happening, it's just not true.
Number 2, social media influencers. We knew that was going to be there. Those women get a lot of attention in general. A lot of them are showing their body to get views. They got men in their DMs. People are paying for subscriptions. If she's always on her phone, she probably has time for hoes. I'm not going to lie, I've fallen for a few influencers. It's wicked. It's just a tricky road to go down.
And this is a fact. The more accessible a woman is to the world, the higher the likelihood that someone will slip past her defenses. And since we're talking about social media, the guy who DMs your partner can be from anywhere in the world. And if he's got it like that, it won't be a problem for him to fly her out for a weekend of activities.
Number 3, nurses. I'm not surprised nurses be getting active. That one was expected to me. I feel like recently in my generation, almost every girl wants to be a nurse. It's a good career path, you make good money, and y'all grew up watching Grey's Anatomy, so you're probably programmed to be a freak. I've fallen for some nurses too. It's just something about a girl in scrubs.
Yeah, I mean, when you have people working long hours in a stressful environment, it's bound to lead to some poor decision making. It also doesn't help that they spend so much time with their coworkers, making it even more likely that certain bonds will be formed over time. I even found this interesting post on Quora from a nurse, and she had this to say. From my 10 years experience as an ER nurse, it happens. Nurses with doctors, nurses with nurses, nurses with firefighters, nurses with security, nurses with transport. It's a revolving door of infidelity. I was one who cheated with a doctor. There's nothing glamorous about it, but it's real.
Number 4, flight attendants. That one's self-explanatory. She travels for a living. She's going from place to place, city to city, country to country. You don't think she has a roster of men? You're lucky if you're her favorite in that region. I actually haven't been with a flight attendant, but I plan on joining the Mile High Club one day.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to why flight attendants are seen as massive cheaters. Spending all that time away from home and enjoying overnight stays with coworkers, which may sometimes involve alcohol, sounds like a bad idea from the start. On the website Flying by Numbers, they had this to say about flight attendants and their cheating habits. Back in 2019, they surveyed nearly 6,000 of their members, asking their married user base where they worked and their profession. Interestingly, flight attendants made up the second highest proportion of cheaters, only second to bankers and those high up in the finance industry. So, if you want to get with a flight attendant, you might want to rethink that before you make any heavy commitments. Anyway guys, that's about all for today. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps me out a lot, and if you're up for it, we can chop it up in the comments.